Welcome to our presentation, FirstNet, where we are and where we're going. Today to learn a little bit about FirstNet. My name is Gary McCarraher, and with me today are Michael Varney. Mike's our FirstNet's Director of Stakeholder Collaboration. We also have Kevin Nida. Kevin is a Senior Public Safety Advisor on the West Coast. So, gents, I'd like to thank you both for being with us and putting time and effort into our presentation today. And they ask if you could kindly introduce yourselves to our audience. So, Mike, let's get started with you.
Thank you, Gary. As Gary mentioned, my name is Michael Varney, and I'm the current Director of Stakeholder Collaboration at FirstNet. I've been with the FirstNet Authority for 5 years, and prior to that, I spent 29 years at the state of Connecticut serving in different information technologies and public safety communication roles, one of them being the statewide interoperability coordinator. And during that same time, I also was active in the fire service, and I'm the past fire chief in Ellington, Connecticut. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Mike. Kevin?
Thank you. Kevin Nida here, Senior Public Safety Advisor in California, and 37 years with the LA City Fire. Retired as a battalion chief 4 years ago, worked on technology and many interoperable projects, and been with FirstNet now to promote our nationwide public safety broadband network. So back to you.
Thanks, Kevin. And again, my name's Gary McCarraher, and I'm a Senior Public Safety Advisor for the Authority. I came to FirstNet after a 45-year career in the fire service. I began my career in the volunteer fire service in the mid-'70s and began my career fire service in 1980. I finished my last 20 years of my fire service career as fire chief in the town of Franklin, Massachusetts. I also served as 3 terms as the chair of the Communications Committee for the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And by virtue of that position, I represented the IAFC on various national communications groups. I've been with FirstNet now just a little bit over 2 years. So, and I'm responsible for the states of Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So let's get started with today's presentation. So I'm going to really start with the where we are portion. Give you a little overview of our history for those of you who may not be aware. Give you an overview of our roadmap. Then I'll hand it off to Kevin, and he'll discuss LMR to LTE integration, as well as the newly released compact rapid deployable device, also known as CRD. And then we'll finish up with Mike Varney, who will provide us with an overview of the emerging technologies of location-based services and high-power user equipment. So again, FirstNet, as most of you know, was established by Congress in 2012 as a recommendation of the 911 Commission. The 911 Commission recommended that public safety be provided with an interoperable communications platform. And the legislation was supported by all of the major national associations, to include the IAFC, the IACP, the National Sheriff's Association, and the SEMSO. The legislation provided 20 megahertz of bandwidth, which was commonly referred to at the time as the D block, and now is referred to as band 14, as well as $7 billion to begin developing the network. After the passage of the legislation, FirstNet created an entirely new governmental agency within the Department of Commerce. FirstNet quickly began reaching out to the public safety through consultation with each of the 50 states and 6 territories to collect and validate where coverage was required for public safety throughout the country. And concurrent to that, FirstNet also worked tirelessly with our Public Safety Advisory Committee, and that group represented 42 national public safety associations to gain input into the needs of public safety while developing the request for proposal for a broadband partner. In 2017, FirstNet published its RFP, and in later that year awarded a 25-year contract to AT&T to construct, maintain, and run the retail elements of the nationwide public safety broadband network. One of the benefits we got from our AT&T contract is not only did they agree to build us a substantial portion of the FirstNet network and maintained that, but they also pledged their entire network assets for use by public safety, which means not only does public safety have exclusive right to band 14, they can also access AT&T's LTE bands on demand. And because of that, FirstNet has access to all of those resources and began putting public safety online in 2018 after the development of the FirstNet core was completed. And as you can see today, we've quickly moved to provide services for public safety. Since the launch in 2018, we now have more than 2 million connections and support more than 15,000 public safety agencies throughout the country. One of FirstNet's difference and unique offerings for public safety is our fleet of deployable devices intended to roll out to either planned events or emergencies to support public safety operations. The deployable fleet now consists of more than 80 devices, including 72 satellites on light trucks or SATCOLTs, 3 tethered unmanned aerial vehicles known as cell-all-wings or CALs, and one, it's called Aerostat 1, and it's a tethered blimp. As I stated earlier, the FirstNet Authority has a 25-year partnership with AT&T. The partnership clearly outlines the roles and responsibilities both for the authority and AT&T. And as you can see, AT&T is really responsible for the construction and maintenance of the network, with the FirstNet Authority responsible for contract oversight and public safety engagement. And it's worth noting here, I think, that not only does AT&T have oversight from the FirstNet Authority, FirstNet has congressional oversight. So we receive audits from the GAO and also report regularly to the various congressional oversight committees. One of the most important responsibilities charged to us in the FirstNet Authority are innovation strategies and investments to ensure that the nationwide public safety broadband network remains contemporary and current and keeps pace with the ever increasing needs of public safety. The FirstNet Authority has developed a process to meet these challenges through what we call the roadmap. The roadmap brings all the relevant influence together to provide a framework to identify and prioritize the investments and enhancements into the network over the next 20 years. Our key influencers, obviously, is public safety. The FirstNet Authority spends a great deal of time and resources in outreach to ensure we hear the needs and priorities of the folks in public safety. We also spend a great deal of energy with people in industry and academia to assess the present and future trends of the technology ecosystem. Our public safety input and input from academia and industry are then folded together into our discussions and planning with our AT&T partner. These elements all converge to shape and influence our investments and enhancements into the nationwide public safety broadband network. These investments recently resulted in the purchase of additional deployable devices, as well as enhancing the network to accommodate 5G technology standards. As I said earlier, public safety is indeed our key focus. I work in the division of FirstNet called Public Safety Engagement. It's comprised of 23 folks who are all charged to provide public information to public safety, as well as gain public safety's input. And that's from all 50 states and 6 territories. Our division literally conducts thousands of engagements with public safety each year to listen to their needs and the requirements that they have from the nationwide public safety network. These engagements develop a ton of data, and our analysts review and evaluate to determine the themes and trends that they hear from public safety. In addition, we conduct pointed surveys, we conduct one-on-one discussions, and targeted focus groups that validate the findings to ensure that we are certain that the message we hear is accurate from public safety. Indeed, all of this is really, really crucial, as over the next 20 years, we'll have $18 billion to invest in making sure that this network continues to meet the needs of public safety. So I asked earlier in the presentation, if you see an opportunity to participate in any of these engagements, please take full advantage of that. The network will only remain as public safety focused as you tell us it should be. So central to our roadmap are 6 specific focus areas, which we refer to as domains. The domains allow us to focus our discussions with all of our stakeholders. And the specific domains include the FirstNet core, or the brain of the network, coverage capacity, and that's whether it's macro coverage or in-building coverage, airborne coverage, or maritime coverage. Situational awareness, which we define as the ability to aggregate and synthesize information in real time from multiple sources to obtain and present actionable insights for public safety. Voice communications, and Kevin will talk a little bit about voice communications from an LMR to LTE integration perspective. It also includes push-to-talk and all the things that you typically think of voice communications. Next is secure information exchange, which includes cybersecurity, data access, secure information exchange, all intended to provide public safety with a safe and secure network environment. And finally, it's user experience. And this encompasses a whole host of things, such as priority services, application services, devices, and device accessories. We've recently released the first revision of our roadmap. This edition of the roadmap does not dramatically differ from the first version, which was released in 2019. It does, however, provide a more granular focus on specific topics in each domain. The focus has been as a result of our 2020 engagements and discussions with everyone in public safety. If you'd like to review the roadmap, and it's a pretty quick read, or get more information on the roadmap, you can do that by going to our website at www.firstnet.gov. So that brings my portion of the presentation to a close. Now I'd like to move on to my colleague, Kevin Nida. And Kevin, again, I'd like to thank you for being with us today and look forward to hearing about LMR to LTE integration, as well as the new compact rapid deployable. Kevin.
Thank you, Gary. So again, Kevin Nida here, Senior Public Safety Advisor. I cover California, Iowa, Nebraska, but available to our fire service folks anytime. There's a lot of discussion about LMR to LTE push-to-talk, and there are 3 primary methods of connecting land mobile radio or LMR communications to LTE applications to accomplish this push-to-talk capabilities. A lot of agencies think it may be too expensive to do or maybe too complicated, but the radio over IP, which is a simple donor radio, a push-to-talk interface, and a push-to-talk application along with an internet connection, makes it pretty easy to use, or pretty easy to use that configuration to test out. The next level up is what we call console subsystem interface, or CFSI. And that's what actually interfaces to your dispatch console and the circuitry there. And then the most expensive and most detailed is what we call an inter-RF subsystem interface, or ISSI. And that's the P25 trunking system interface, and it gives you the most functionality. So the primary benefits of this technology are to allow the user to select the right tool for the job. You have people that are going to want a radio or need a radio, and you're going to have people who are just going to want a smart device. And this allows them to have one or both, but again, the proper tool for the job. It provides an extended coverage of the LMR system over the LTE and Wi-Fi. There are a lot of places where the LMR system may not reach. You may not have a distributed antenna system, let's say at a hospital. But if you had access to Wi-Fi, your smart device could cross-connect through the Wi-Fi system back to your dispatch center. It integrates the LMR feature into the smart devices and LTE capabilities into LMR hybrid radios. So again, we kind of cross-pollinate between the 2 technologies to give you the best tool for the job. It also provides a ruggedized NFPA compliant LMR radio when that's the right tool. So if you have an LMR device that's NFPA compliant and that's got broadband in it, again, you're combining the 2 technologies for a great result. And it also provides a smart device to the user that doesn't need that ruggedized NFPA compliant device. Again, the right tool for the job. This diagram shows the basics over a fixed base station radio over IP donor radio system. To the right, you have two handheld radios that are communicating with each other, back to dispatch, through an internet connection with that radio connected, and off to the FirstNet network. So you have a smart device. We have the FirstNet LTE site, which is connected to or part of the radio access network. And that all connects to our core and back to dispatch. So it makes a big circle. But the easy way to remember this is radio over IP. It needs a radio, it needs that interface, it needs the application, and the LMR piece of that. You can also do this from a mobile perspective. So we replace the dispatch center with a fire apparatus. This could be an engine, a truck, it could be a command vehicle, it could be an ambulance. But again, this allows you to take off-network traffic and put this on the network. So imagine being at an incident where you may be out of LMR range, or you're operating on a simplex tactical channel, but you want to take that frequency and you want to put that onto the network. This tool would allow you to do that. So you can take off-network traffic without a lot of extra infrastructure on the LMR side, put the radio traffic on the LTE side, and bring that back to dispatch through an application. The console subsystem interface, or CFSI, a little more complicated, but this again goes right into the dispatch console, into the dispatch center, and then connects to our core through the network. And the ISSI is essentially a core-to-core connection. So our core would be connected through the network to the LMR core as part of that ISSI. It gives you the full feature functionality of radio ID, emergency features, that sort of thing. But again, we go from the basics to radio over IP, to CFSI, and then to ISSI. So the next few slides are going to kind of show you the iterations of the various channels and kind of how we operate today on the LMR piece and how those can be cross-connected over to LTE. So most departments have got dispatch, tactical, command, or operations frequencies. So we'll start with dispatch 1, and then we add a couple of tactical frequencies. So this is probably your pretty basic system that you would see across the country. You take those 3 channels, and then you add a couple of interoperable channels, VCall or VTAC. And so you can cross-connect those as well. And this gives you a basic 5-channel system. Through our radio over IP or CFSI or ISSI, you can take all 5 of those channels and cross-connect those through the network to provide 5 mirrored LTE talk groups. So whatever you hear on dispatch 1 on the LMR side goes to LTE and vice versa. The thing that you can do with LTE also, and is more difficult to do with LMR because you need a lot more infrastructure, is you can add a couple of more talk groups on the fly. You can design those in, or you can create those incident by incident, but you can create a fire interoperability channel, maybe with public works that you wouldn't have established all the time. I know city executives like to have direct connectivity with the fire chief or other city managers, and you can do that as well. And you can also restrict which users have access to these talk groups. So again, you start with 5 basic channels, you roll those over to LTE, add a couple more talk groups, you get a pretty robust system. Now for the LMR partner, or the law enforcement partners on the LMR side, you can take their 5 channels, kind of a mirrored image of what you have on the fire side, but on law enforcement, and you can take those channels and then create those into their own LTE talk groups. And again, you can have interoperability between law and fire on all, some, or maybe even none, or even create receive-only talk groups. And again, you can add those LTE talk groups for law enforcement and city executives as well. One of the things that I wanted to point out that is really important, when you want to add infrastructure to your LMR system, it can be very expensive. And so if you want to add a voting receiver, extra transmitter, et cetera, it can take a long time to plan that, a long time to get frequency coordination. And if you need it, that's what you need to do. But if you have the opportunity to be able to use LTE talk groups, you can do that a lot faster, and you can cross-connect that mobile radio in the field with the LMR to LTE interface, get that on the network, and provide some necessary monitoring, recording, that sort of thing back to dispatch. We know we can talk to dispatch on the LMR system, but we want to have dispatch to have the capability of monitoring that off-network traffic as well. Now on to more progress and innovations. Compact, rapid deployable. So FirstNet Authority and FirstNet with AT&T have many deployable solutions. We have the vehicle-based truck or trailer cell phone tower that connects back to the LTE network. It's available in several shapes and sizes appropriate for different scenarios and provides service to network users. The network connectivity is provided through satellite or fiber, and if satellite, the speed is limited due to the satellite constraints. But if you're at a predetermined location or a location that has fiber connectivity, that speed really improves a lot. So here you've got a large truck, you've got to have a lot of specifics to be able to deploy that vehicle. So the trucks, the Pro, fast response, self-sufficient. The Con, limited coverage, a half to 1 mile. It has limited access, bridges, off-road, steep hills, that sort of thing. It's got to be a pretty fairly level ground. Trailers, you can access places a truck can't, but again, size is always a factor in deployment, and speed. The drones, the Pro, they can provide the same coverage as 3 to 5 trucks, but you've got to have an FAA licensed operator. It takes longer to get there. And the aerostats, again, that FAA licensed operator and a much larger footprint, but a lot longer setup time. So public safety has been asking for something smaller, more deployable, something that they can potentially own and deploy from their own department with coordination through FirstNet Authority and FirstNet, AT&T, and we have that. And so it's called a Compact Rapid Deployable, or CRD. Now this can be a custom owned and maintained device. CRDs are now a FirstNet subscriber agency option. This is pretty much made up of a wheeled accessory case that goes on a vehicle trailer receiver. It is not a trailer, does not have to touch the ground, only when it's being taken off of the trailer receiver. But it's got the high-speed audio or auto-acquiring Ka-band satellite terminal, a weather-proof NEMA 4 enclosure, high-gain LTE antennas, a 5-meter fiberglass mast. Overall, it gets the device about 18 feet in the air. And built-in generator, power control module, stabilizers, satellite modem, satellite controller, cradle point router, and most importantly, the Band 14 cellular radio, all built into a very compact, rapid deployable device. These illustrations show how the device is stored on the vehicle. Again, you do not need to put this on a trailer. It simply connects to the trailer hitch. And then the other illustration, you can see while it's still on the hitch, just as it's taken off the hitch, those wheels can be adjusted. So essentially, when it's on the hitch, you drop the wheels down, you take the weight off of the hitch, and then you can move the device away from the vehicle. The device can be used while it's on the vehicle, but the vehicle has to remain stationary to maintain the satellite connection. So you get about 20 feet from the ground to the tip of the antennas when it's on the vehicle, and about 18 feet from the ground to the tip when it's deployed on ground. Some of the features: FirstNet range up to 1 mile. Again, you can get more than a mile in certain circumstances, depending on the elevation above average terrain where that device is going to be parked. You can get Wi-Fi range up to 1,000 feet, again, with the high-speed internet. It has a 60-hour generator runtime. So you can either run the generator continuously, you could run this offshore power, or you can alternate between battery and generator, running off battery and then running the generator to recharge the battery. And that gives you quite a bit more time. Waterproof, weatherproof is part of the NEMA requirement. Again, the trailer hitch, it's not a trailer. So very important there. Benefits: it's fully functional as a FirstNet cell on wheels. It has a little bit less power than a large deployable, but it's very, very powerful, can give you about the same range, and is a lot more functional. It'll connect you to the cloud, deployable by a single person, goes right to the incident, and there's no special training required. It's pretty simple to use. So we look at this on the wildland. Wildland incidents as being very, very useful. Being able to build a network, there are some limitations, and we continue to evolve the devices so they can hand off and that sort of thing. Those things are under deployment or under development right now. But overall, emergency response, remote internet connectivity, it has some business uses as well for continuity, recovery, for like our emergency management partners. If they needed a restoration of internet service, fiber gets burned up or dug up, you have something in your inventory you can get right out there and get reconnected. Also supplies internet to other units, voice over IP, radio over IP, IoT in general, and then back up your PSAP or dispatch. So many good uses here. A couple of shots of deployments. If you see the ratio to the man to the right, these are pretty small, really. About 6 feet tall without the antennas deployed. And also in fire camp, this particular unit on the right was deployed without LTE. It had Wi-Fi though. And so if you provide it, they will come, and many people were around that device getting Wi-Fi coverage to their needed devices for command and control. And I'll hand it over to Mike Varney, who's going to talk about the Z-axis.
I'd like to now talk to you about two of our new emerging technologies and available services. The first one being location services, also referred to as location-based services, or LBS. Offers added functionality that utilizes geographic and location data to provide information to users, such as location and tracking of personnel, vehicles, assets, and geofencing. I'll now show a short video to show some of the fundamental definitions and examples of what we're talking about with location-based services.
Location services, also referred to as location-based services or LBS, offer added functionality that utilizes geographic and location data to provide information to users, such as location and tracking of personnel, vehicles, assets, and geofencing. Location accuracy. Location accuracy refers to the precision of the measured location relative to the ground truth or the actual location. There is a component of confidence or reliability when repeating the measurement or delivery of the location data. For example, Z-axis is accurate within 3 meters with 80% confidence. This means that when taking multiple measurements to deliver the Z-axis location, 80% of the time it will be accurate within 3 meters. Integrated 3D location. Integrated 3D location refers to a comprehensive X, Y, and Z-axis location fixed displayed on a mapping interface for easy consumption by users viewing the information. Viewing just the X and Y axis information will only display the horizontal location of the subject, but not the vertical location or floor level when the subject is in a multi-story building. The Z-axis information alone will display the vertical location only, but must be integrated with the X and Y axis data in order to provide value. Performance. Performance or delivery of location service information is initiated by different triggers. Ideally, LBS reporting should be time, motion, and status triggered, rather than just based on set time intervals. Time-based triggers. Time-based location reporting operates on an optimal default interval designed to conserve network resources and battery life on the device. Someone in an administrative, investigative, or inspection role may not need to have the same location update interval as a frontline operational first responder. Motion-based triggers. With a motion-based trigger, the location of the person or vehicle in motion will update based on their speed or activity. The faster the subject is moving, the more frequently or faster the location information should update. For example, someone walking may not need their location updated as frequently as someone running or driving. Location data that is just a few seconds old is less useful for real-time decision-making. Status-based triggers. Status-based triggers are appropriate during times when it is critical to have extremely accurate and real-time location information. For example, location information should be reported frequently in cases where a responder needs emergency assistance. If a responder initiates an emergency call for assistance, the ability to upgrade location reporting to the best possible is crucial until the emergency condition is resolved. In consultation with public safety, the FirstNet Authority promotes an ecosystem of products and services that serve the unique needs of first responders. Location services are a priority within our situational awareness roadmap domain. Learn more about how we plan to drive technology advancements at firstnet.gov.
As you can see through that last video and on this slide, the vertical or z-axis capability shows a responder's altitude measurement in addition to their x and y coordinates or lat and long. This technology, which uses the barometric pressure sensor already in the phone, is a key step towards first responders being able to confidently be located indoors and in multi-story buildings. The graphic on the right shows how this altitude is displayed as height above terrain or HAT, which is essentially the distance you are above the ground relative to your X and Y position on the ground. How this works is the responder calibrates the device, and then as they move to different floors in the buildings or structures, their z-axis measurement is displayed via the Response for FirstNet application, which is the only application today that takes advantage of this. This app is a communication and collaboration tool that AT&T has partnered with Intrepid Response to deploy the first of its kind z-axis capability. Today, FirstNet is the only network to provide this service to public safety.
Location Services Solutions use geographic and position data to provide information to users, identifying the physical whereabouts and tracking of personnel, vehicles, and other assets. They can locate a responder, not just a vehicle, regardless of where they are, and without any verbal input. In today's environment, public safety tracks responder location using a wide assortment of options, all with varying degrees of accuracy, effectiveness, and automation, from handwritten maps to smartphone applications. Using location services to locate individual first responders can be absolutely critical in terms of personnel safety and accountability, improved response times, and enhanced operational effectiveness. Personnel safety and accountability is paramount during incidents such as a building fire. In urban canyons, where multiple high-rise buildings are concentrated in a metro area, the accuracy of a common GPS technology may be limited. With location-based services, incident commanders need the ability to pinpoint a specific building and know the floor level and location of individual responders inside the structure. They can track movement, direction, speed, and orientation, and help effectively guide responders or rescue teams to an exit or safety if they become disoriented, air supply runs low, or evacuation becomes necessary. Bringing personnel, hoses, and other equipment up flights of stairs is difficult, and going to an incorrect floor can lose valuable time. Once inside, 3D location accuracy combined with a mapping solution can provide additional details such as floor levels and specific rooms on that floor. Walls, dead ends, structural collapse, extreme fire conditions, and low visibility can cause responders to lose orientation navigating inside structures. This can easily occur within smaller single-story buildings and is further complicated in multi-story or high-rise structures. Even a short delay caused by lack of location information or location inaccuracy can potentially have catastrophic outcomes. During events involving large or dense crowd conditions, like sporting events, holiday celebrations, and community activities, location-based services can be invaluable. Law enforcement units assigned to the event frequently report medical emergencies within the crowd. Dispatchers must identify the closest available EMS crew that can quickly reach the scene. Incident locations in large crowds don't typically have a clear-cut address for responders to quickly locate. Personnel rely on the best location description provided by the dispatchers or other responders requesting assistance. When seconds can change the patient outcome during a medical emergency, dispatchers and responders need a more accurate location tool to improve response times. Active assailant incidents are a rapidly evolving situation and frequently involve multiple agencies responding simultaneously and include many unknowns. Responders from multiple agencies must navigate rapidly and effectively while maintaining an awareness of other responders' locations and any threats, so they can safely and tactically address the threat and extract injured victims. Multiple 911 callers may be providing emergency communication centers with location information for an assailant or injured persons. Location services tools help dispatchers, supervisors, commanders, and individual responders view accurate locations for other responders and document the locations of other key elements. Location services are vital for all public safety disciplines, communities of any size, and the many unique operating environments where public safety responds. In consultation with public safety, the FirstNet Authority promotes an ecosystem of products and services that serve the unique needs of first responders. Location services are a priority within our situational awareness roadmap domain. Learn more about how we plan to drive technology.
So as you saw through that video, several uses of location-based services, which I'm sure you are aware of to some extent already. And I just wanted to quickly touch to the areas that are available now for the Z-Access solution. There's 52 different market areas around the United States which have initially been rolled out with this capability for Z-Access through the Intrepid response for FirstNet application. And these are areas that were identified as having a high density and number of buildings that are greater than 3 stories high. Next, I want to talk about mega range, or our high-powered user equipment. AT&T and FirstNet are working together to develop safe and effective solutions that bring first responders the true benefits of high-power user equipment. Following 3GPP standards, the third generation partnership program, which we are a participant of, HPUE solutions can have stronger signals. This signal increase can only be done using FirstNet's band 14 spectrum. It is not available on other LTE spectrum. To date, as you can see, there are 2 HPUE devices that have been announced and are available for use in the field. One is integrated with an antenna, and the other one is similar to in-vehicle router solutions, which you may be availing yourselves of today. Some of the benefits and challenges that we have with high-power user equipment. Specific to public safety, it provides increased range and coverage, improves building penetration. It requires few cell sites to get the same throughput capability and optimizes our resources. Some of the challenges we have are battery life and specific absorption rates. And these particular devices are available only in vehicle-mounted solutions at the moment due to some of the heat and battery issues, putting them on handheld devices. For use cases for wildland fire and search and rescue operations, there's the ability to communicate in rugged remote locations where there was previously very limited connectivity. An HPUE device can be mounted on a fire apparatus and provide connectivity to the team, and location data can create greater situational awareness, as we just discussed. For an EMS use case, Remote telemedicine is becoming more and more common in today's operations, specifically over the last year. And HPUE can support these data connectivity for calls in rural communities where coverage is limited, specifically when you're on the cell edge to increase your experience. As you can see from this graphic, the quality of the experience is significantly increased because of the ability off of band 14 to use a higher power, which is 6 times more than the typical user equipment from a commercial device, and the range is slightly extended and takes advantage of all of the available bandwidth. Several use cases, again, as HPUE gets into the hands of public safety, we expect that you will find new and creative ways to use it. We've discussed already wildland fire and search and rescue operations and how HPUE might provide connectivity to remote operations. When thinking of disaster responses as hurricanes, when the LTE infrastructure may be damaged, HPUE has the potential to reach further infrastructure to provide connectivity. There are definite possibilities, again, for EMS and telemedicine, such as use cases for rural remote locations, particularly when you think of areas out into the Western United States and the territories. And the use case of building penetration has a great potential as HPUE has the power to penetrate greater through buildings, and this may provide options for underground utilities and transportation support. Finally, as we specifically look to enhance these platforms where HPUE may have a potential, we look to maritime operations providing connectivity in areas off the U.S. coastline, the Great Lakes, or some of the U.S. territories, and airborne operations. Shown here is an aerostat where the HPUE might be used to reach band 14 for further distances. I'll now turn it back to Gary.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you both, Kevin and Mike, for your presentations. I found them both informative and insightful into where FirstNet is going. And thank you in the audience for your time today to learn a little bit more about FirstNet. One of the things that I really want to leave with you before we move on to the question portion is that regardless who you have for an LTE vendor, I really want you to engage with FirstNet. We serve as the sole incubator for LTE technology in the public safety space. With the things that you saw Kevin talk about today, the LMR to LTE integration, the rapid deployables, and then Z-Access with Mike, and the mega range, those things were FirstNet driven, and we continue to drive that bus. So I want you to stay with us. And again, even if you're engaged and committed to another LTE vendor, we really drive that innovation bus, and I want you to stay with us. So with that being said, again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mike. And we'll be standing by for any of your questions.